Hello and welcome back again to Learning C# Fundamentals from Scratch. I am your host, Alex Horton. and Today we're going to be talking about branching. Always the disclaimer, I am not the greatest dev in the world, not the worst dev in the world, but also I am learning as I go as well, new things, and we are going to learn all of this stuff together. So I don't have all the answers. This is just the intent of this particular series is to get you started, get you interested, and then get you into somewhere in the either learning environment or a bit better source of information. There is no substitute for a formal learning environment, and always keep the comments and criticism constructive, as well as share with one another. We're here to learn together. So I'm not sure if you can hear in the background, I'm in my office and my heater's on because it's very cold. I just watched the Ohio State Buckeyes dismantle the Wisconsin Badgers in the second half of that football game. And my goodness, it was masterful to watch that. And watched earlier today, big sports fan, watched earlier today Andy Ruiz lose his titles to Anthony Joshua. Now, Anthony Joshua needs to stop running, and he needs to start fighting more worthy opponents like one Deontay, the Bronze Bomber, Wilder. Get it done. Get that fight done, you guys. So anyway, we're going to talk about branching today. So what is branching? Branching is the practice of creating a copy of your program or your objects in development to work in parallel versions. You retain the original and you work on the branch, or you make different changes to each. What does that mean? Well, let's go back to this library situation that we were talking about in the previous video. When you check a sorry, it's late. When you check a book into the library, or when the library purchases a book, it's the original copy of that book. Okay. Now let's say there's going to be revisions to that book. Well, when a library wants to make a revision to a book, they usually have to replace that book. Okay. Now, let's say there's somebody who still needs to read that book at the same time the revisions are being made to the book. So what you would do is you would lock down the original copy of the book. You'd allow the person who has the book checked out to read the book in its current form, while on the other side, the person who's making the changes to the book would be making those changes to that book. And then once they've updated the book, they will push out the changes to that book into the library. And then the person who has the library book checked out in its original form, they will pull in the changes that have now been made to the master copy of the book. That's a form of branching, or that's kind of branching in its dirtiest form. Okay. Basically, you're going to make a copy of something, and when you get done messing with that copy, you're going to check that copy in, and other people can also work on copies of that code too. We'll kind of demonstrate as we go along. Each copy of code is considered a branch. So you have the master branch, and that's going to always be the original program from which the branch is taken. It's your main copy of your code, okay, in its purest form, currently being deployed, currently being used. Okay. Then also there's a development branch, and your development branch is the active branch of code that's going to be developed for release. So you can have 5 people working on code, and the person whose release comes out first, their branch is going to be the active development branch. All the other branches behind there are going to be branches for future development releases. Another thing to remember about branching is it makes it, why would you branch? Well, like I said just a second ago, it makes it possible for different developers to work on the same code at the same time. Okay? Because everybody gets their own copy of the code. It forces collaboration. It allows for bug fixes, addition of new functionality, and new versions after you're done testing, obviously. So branching gives you the ability to do a lot of great things at the same time. It can be very confusing to work on branches, especially if you've got a lot of different requests out there. So you have to really learn how to manage branches. Okay, so let's go into our branches. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the master branch first here. And what I've done, and you can do this as well, you just send me an email and I'll allow you to grab this code out there. But I've created a repository on my GitHub account called reverse string with a solution here. And this solution has a very basic starting block of code. What we're going to do is we're going to solve a problem here. And then as we solve this problem, we're going to make enhancements to this particular bit of code. So one of the best ways to learn how to develop is to go out and look for C# test exercises. Okay. So one of the ones that I picked out was this one called Test Dome. They've got a ton of different questions out there. Some of them, there are a lot of them are pretty complex. You have to pay for some. There's some free ones out there. But one of the things that you need to learn how to do as a developer is think in algorithms, you know, things that are going to allow you to do different tasks repeatedly with a minimum amount of effort. Things you can run over and over again or schedule or stuff like that, right? So we're going to come up with a solution to a problem. So here's a problem. Here's a real simple problem. Let's say we want to take a line of string and reverse it, okay, and get the reverse spelling of a word or a phrase or whatever. Okay, so for example, the word fundamentals, right? So how would we do that in code? Well, that's what we're going to figure out, and we're going to use this class to do that. Okay, so let's go out to Visual Studio, go to our Team Explorer, and get into our GitHub account. And I'm still signed into my GitHub account over here, so I can click the word clone. And you'll see I've got those two repositories over here. Now this reverse string repository is the one that I want. So I'm going to clone this repository. And so now I can open this up. I'll change the target to 4.6. Doesn't matter. Let me just rebuild that just to be on the safe side. So make sure that it runs. I did that on another machine. Okay, so what we're going to do is if we open up this program.cs, you can see that I put a summary in there basically of what the program is going to do. And we're starting from a bare bones basic class, right? So let's say, and then what we're going to do is we're going to pass in a string via the command line. Now, in Visual Studio, to pass in command line, you're going to go up to Project, go to the Project Properties, under Debug, and in this group right here, when it says Start Options, we're gonna pass in our string when we get ready to test it. Okay. And if you're making an executable file, you can run the command line outside of Visual Studio, obviously. So there's different ways to do that. So let's get started here. So let's take a word that we are going to be able to turn around. The word is going to be, let's use that word, fundamentals. That's the word we're going to switch around in the easiest way, in the most effective way possible. Now we know a few things. Number one, we're going to have to pass it into the command line. Now we see that we have an array here of arguments. It's a string array of arguments. So what we need to do is we're going to have to reference an index of an array to grab the right information from the command line. So to do that, let's put our fundamentals. Let's just copy that real quick. So we don't have to type back in. Go to Project, go to the Properties, just paste it in here into this box where it says Command Line Arguments. Save it. Close that. Save your work here. And now let's put a console write line and get this ready to go. And then let's say I want to show what information is passed into my command line parameter. So I'm just going to type that command line parameter is. Now let's not forget, the write line method allows us to pass in a string and to print that string to the screen. So what we need to do is we need to take that string and we need to put whatever is passed into that argument, which is that word fundamentals, and we need to display it here. Now, how would we do that? Well, in C#, the way to concatenate or to add on to a string, there's multiple ways to do it, but the easiest way in the same line is to put a space here and use the plus operator. Okay. And to reference the index of an array, you're going to reference the args. Okay. Now, arrays in C# are zero-based arrays, zero index arrays. Okay. That means that the first instance of an array is not the number 1, but the number 0. That's explained. Let me explain that this way. Okay. So if you look at an array, let's use that word fundamentals again. F-U-N-D-A-M-E-N-T-A-L-S. Yes, I had to check the spelling. Now, let's go ahead and just... Now, what does this mean? What does it mean when you have a zero indexed array? So this is our args array. Okay. Now what it means is an index is just the position that a byte is in. So this is position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, right? But in C# and in most programming language, well, I can't say most programming languages. I'll put it this way. In C#, I'll say it that way. Arrays don't start with a 1 unless you know, they don't start with a 1. Arrays, lists, those kind of things start with a 0 index array. So the first number, instead of it being a 1, it's going to be a 0. And it just goes on from there. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, and 11. So when I get ready to reference this number or this letter, let's say I want to grab the letter N out of this array. Let's make that red. Let's say I want to grab the letter N out of this array. So my argument, and remember arrays start with brackets, right? Arg, I want the N is going to be, if I want position number 3, I need to reference arg index element number 2. And then you just move this over and you would type it in here like this. So that means if I reference arg element number 2 or index number 2, I'm going to get an N. Okay, right there. This is a great way to, and lists work the same way. You know, a lot of different things work the same way. Okay, now that's if I was going to break this word into individuals. Now, since I'm going ahead and I'm passing in an entire word, instead of it being like this, it's going to be like this. So then my first element of my array is going to be args 0 if I want to get that word fundamentals, right? Now, it's very important that you check the length of your array. What do I mean by that? This is the length of your array. Okay. This would be the length of your array. Now, to check the length, if you want to get the length in a numeric value, let's say I had fundamentals from scratch. Okay. Let's say I'm going to get the length of this array. Well, this gives me a length of 3 because I have 1, 2, 3 values in my array. When I want to grab the actual array index, I need to refer to this number. Okay. So I have an array with 3 indexes, and I want to grab index number 2. It would look like this. Follow what I'm saying? Because I'm grabbing this one right here. Now, why is it important that you check the length of your array or your list? Well, the reason why that's important is because, let's say I reference the number 9 index. Well, there's nothing there. And what you're going to get is you're going to get an out of bounds exception of your array, because the array only goes up to 3 indexes. Okay. So always check the length of your array before you go trying to pull stuff in and out of it. Okay. So let's get back to what we got going on here. So since I know I've only passed in one parameter into my command line, that's going to be a 0. Okay. But let me show you what happens if I pass in a 1 here. I'm going to start debugging. And right away, I've got my Right away, I've got my unhandled exception because this says it's out of the bounds of the array, because I'm trying to reference position number, index number 2, but I only have one thing in my array. Index was outside the bounds of the array. Okay. That tells me that I tried to reference something that wasn't there. So now, if I go back, put in a 0 there, and I debug this, that is annoying. Okay, I have to turn my antivirus off. So if I hit F10 here, now if I go back over to my command line, I can see, boom, I've got, let me make that a little bit bigger here. There we go. So now you can see I've got my command line parameter is fundamentals there, right? Now we want to take that word and we want to turn it around. We want the S to start and the F to be the last letters. Okay, S is going to be the first, F is going to be the last letter. Well, the easiest way to do this is to use a method on a string. And you can do this in a couple of different ways. Okay, so if you're going to make a method to change a string and you want to reference that method in other places of your code, you have to make it a separate method. And I'm going to return a string. So I have a return type of string on this method. We're going to call this switch string. We're going to pass in a string value. And right away, we know we need to return something. So I'm going to create a variable, and it's going to be called string retval equals string.empty. And then down here, I'm going to say return retval. So now I need to pass in my argument into this particular method. How do I do that? Well, I'm just going to call the method right here. And I'm going to say console write line. And I'm going to say reverse string is concatenate. And I'm going to put in switch string. And I'm going to pass in the argument from that array, 0. Put my semicolons. And I'm going to put a read line in there too, or a write line, just to make it look neater. And I'm going to put a read key. And what that does is it allows a pause in there. Let me save my code. Now, if I ran this right now, it wouldn't do anything. It just passed me back an empty string. It would pass me back the same thing. Well, no, it would pass me back an empty string. I'm not doing anything over here with this value. Okay. So how do we how do we switch this around? Well, one way to do it is to take each individual letter as its own small every byte and switch it around using a method called reverse that you can use on a string. So I'm going to put value reverse like that, right? Now you can't do anything just with that. I mean, that's just going to reverse this value up here, and then it's not going to do anything with it. But if I put a var, like that, oh, not ret val, ret string. What that does is it creates what's called an IEnumerable. And what IEnumerable lets you do is different what's called link, which is a dynamic SQL that you can run on a field or on data elements inside of code. That makes it really, really powerful to work with. But what I'm going to do, instead of doing it that way, I'm going to do a for loop, because I'm trying to automate this, right? Var cin value.reverse. So what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to grab each and every individual letter and switch it around. Okay. Then what I can do is I can concatenate this empty string and just fill it in as the program runs. To do that is I can use a concatenation operator like that. And what that will do is it will loop through each time, each letter, and it'll just add the letter to my empty string here. And then I will return this string, which is reversed now, and display it on the screen. So let's go ahead and run this. Let's rebuild our solution. Succeeded. And now we've put our debug window on there. Let's start this out here. And I'm going to actually put a watch on this ret val. So right click on there and say add watch. And it pops up here so you can watch it in real time as it refreshes. So we're going to hit F10. And we can go over to the window here. It says command line parameters fundamentals. You can view the output window too. Or better yet, no, not that. View. We'll just mess around with that. So we got the command line parameters fundamentals. So it's done that line with F10 again. And now we're ready to start running through our algorithm. So hit F11 to step into the algorithm. And you see down here that we've got our word fundamentals here, because that's what we've passed here. And hit F10 here a couple of times and get down to this word right here, or this line of code here. F10 and F10. And now we've reversed that word value by using this function. Now the original value is still the same. We're using a method and we're creating something off of that method, which is the IEnumerable. Okay. So if you look here, what I've done is taken each and every byte and I've reversed it. So we have fundamentals. We've already reversed it. So we've done the hard part, right? Now we just need to take that string of data and put it into our output string here. And that's what this loop is going to do. This is an algorithm that's going to run automatically. Hit F10 again. And we've created a new variable called C. And now all that's going to happen is I'm going to take C, which is an S, it's going to place it into this red valve, which is empty. So watch what happens when I hit F10. And I hover over that, now it's S. We can watch that right here. So watch what happens if I hit F10 a few times. You see the word building there? See that right there? It's building automatically as we go through. And then when it gets to the F, which is the last letter, it's done with the loop. And now it will return the word Slatin F10 a couple of times, and F5 that, and there we go. And now I can hit any key to stop my program. So what we've done is we have taken a string and we have reversed it, and we created a method to handle that for us in an algorithm that we can call anywhere else in our code, right? Now, if we want to get real technical with this, what we can do is we can, instead of using a command line parameter, let's do that. Instead of doing that, we're going to ask the program to query the user for a string. So instead of it saying command line parameter, we'll have it ask, please type in some letters and numbers, or numbers. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a read key, a read line, because we need to grab information from what's input. So we're going to say var input equals console read line. Read line. I think it's read. Read line. Yeah, read line. Okay. Now, whatever's typed in is going to be put into this input variable. Okay. And instead of passing in the args, I'm going to pass in input. So now what's going to happen is anything that I type in, it's going to go ahead and switch it around for me. So let's save that and let's run the same code. So we're debugging. I'm going to hit F5. Type in some letters and numbers. Fundamentals. If I hit enter, it reverses my string for me again. Okay. So that's where you would do something where you would be able to get input exactly from the person on the keyboard, right? So what we've done today in about a half an hour's time is we have learned a little bit about arrays and indexing of an array. We've created our first algorithm and a method that contains that algorithm. Now we are ready to commit our changes to our repository. So make sure your code is saved, and then come over here to the solution, right click the solution and say commit. Typing a commit message, tell exactly what you did. Created a new algo to verse a string given by the string based on input from the user. Now I'm ready to commit my changes. So I'm committing those changes. And I'm going to go over to my my Team Explorer here again, and go to Home and go to Sync. There it is. I'm going to push that code up into the repository. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a branch off of that repository. To do that, so let's say I'm going to create a new function over here that handles, or I'm going to change something in this switch string that makes sure that I only type in numbers or letters. So to make a branch, I'm going to come over here to master down here, click that and say new branch. And then I'm going to give my branch a name. And I'm going to just call it for string enhancement 1, something like that, right? And then I'll say create branch. So now I'm working off of a branch over here, like we did in one of the previous videos, right? So now if I go over to here and I refresh this, you see my code has been updated to what I just did. I pushed out there, but now I've made a branch based off of, what I pushed out there. So now I'm going to put in some code here that checks for numbers. I'm going to just put in a condition and say if C is, well, let's say if char is letter, then add it to my string. Oh, and I need to pass in C into that method there. Else, I don't want to do anything. I only worry about letters and numbers. Letters. Okay. No spaces, only letters. So let's save that and let's compile that or build it. And now let's run that and see how it works here. I'll put a breakpoint down there. Type in some letters and numbers. Testing 1, 2, 3. Hit enter. And now I've stopped on my breakpoint. I can see I've got testing 1, 2, 3. So what will happen here is the first thing that's going to happen is as I go through my code here, is it's going to look for only letters. And if it identifies letters, it will put them into my string. So I should only get the word testing back. So you see it's skipping over the 1, 2, 3. So it's going to go to the G in testing. And now if I take those breakpoints off and hit F5, Giznet, that's testing backwards. And if I hit F5 again, it should be displayed to me. Giznet, T-E-S-T-I-N-G, minus the 1, 2, 3, right? I hit enter a couple of times there. Now I'm ready to push this change up. Oh, let's do one more thing here. Over our method, let's make a comment line. So to do that automatically in C#, type in 3 forward slashes, 1, 2, 3, and it'll automatically paste that in there for you. And I'll call this switch string. And then just give a summary. It says returns a reversed string value with letters only. So now I've got a little bit of what this method does in here too, right? So now I'm going to save that, rebuild it. And let's say I'm ready to check in this branch, but I'm not ready to push this code up to the master. So to do that, you're just going to do your changes. Added logic to the switch string method along with a summary. Comment. Now, let's say I want to make sure that I don't commit changes incorrectly. I can right click on it here, say compare with unmodified, and it'll show me exactly what I changed in here. So let's say, yep, those look like my changes. So now I'm going to commit all, go back over to home, go to sync, and then I'll push this out there. And now if I go back over to GitHub and refresh this, you'll see if I branch down there, there is a branch with my code. And if I switch back to the master, you'll notice that the code is not there. And that is one of the things about branching that makes it so lovely, is that I can work on the same bit of code, but I can branch off and do something different while everybody else is working on another thing. And when the time comes, I can merge my changes up into the main branch. So what we've done is we have created a branch. We've committed to a branch, and we have we've performed an algorithm. We put a little bit of comment lines in there and reversed a string successfully. Now let's say I am ready to merge my code up to the main branch. So what I need to do is I need to close out of this solution, bounce over to the master branch, now you would usually do a pull request. Here, let's just do a pull request here. And basically what pull requests are is a pull request allows you to send code over for folks to look at. So you'll see that I've got this right here, right? So I'm going to create a pull request on this right here. And you'll notice that it has the added logic there, blah, 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 right? Now you can do it this way, or you can do it via Visual Studio. Now I've never done it via Visual Studio, so we're gonna just try that real quick here. So let's go back to the branch, and we're gonna create a pull request. Say create new. And just say create pull request, because we've already got our logic there. And then usually what you do is you put a link to the diff in there. Let's just go ahead and create that pull request. So now if I was the particular supervisor over a team of developers, what I would do is I would see that I've got a pull request out here, and I can open this pull request up. Say open. I can see what's going on in here. I can view the changes, see what changed, and I can say, oh, okay, I see what he changed. And And I can say, yeah, that looks okay. Da-da. Yep. And I'm basically like I'm doing a code review, right? So let's say right here, I'm gonna say something like get a bit more on what you are doing here. And I can say, add a single comment. So you'll notice over here it says this is what I'm doing here. And then I can also add a review. And I can say needs more descriptive comments. Otherwise, code looks okay. And I can submit the review. So now if I go back over here to my pull request, it shows I have a review on there and I can see comments on there and I can look in there and see, okay, what's going on here? You know what? Get a bit more descriptive of what I'm doing here. Overall comment, leaves more description, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. So I know, hey, this is something that I need to do, right? The other thing over here that you can do is you can say, you like the description, blah, blah, blah. You can also change what you've got in there. But the code cannot be, let's say the code cannot be branched up into the master until the pull request is done. So if there were any logic issues or issues that might hurt the code during execution, I would have to fix those before my code could be pushed up to the master. But let's just say that our code is pushed up or ready to be pushed up, right? So then I'll close the diff. And then I'll go back over to the Team Explorer. Oh, over here, Alex. And what I can do is I can say, this looks okay. I'm going to resolve this. And it's ready to be put up into the main branch. So to do that, what I'm going to do is come over to the main master branch. Look at pull requests, open that up, and let's say I'm the reviewer. I can look at comments and everything else. Let's say everything looks good. I'm ready to go. So now what I can do is I can go back. Let me refresh this. And I'm not sure how to close it from here. Yeah. So I'll just close it from over here. And so now I'm ready to create a merge commit, right? All commits from this branch will be added to the base branch via a merge commit. I can do that over here. So let's say everything looks good in the pull request. I come over here to Team Explorer, and I can go down here to here, the reverse string, look for changes. It says there's no changes there, blah, blah, blah. I can look for branches, and I can merge from my reverse string branch into this current branch, and I can commit those changes after I've merged them. So I'm going to do that. Say merge. And now I should be ready to push that up into the repository. So click changes. Oh, sync, I'm sorry. And there's the branch right there. I can say view commit details. Yep, everything looks good. And I can say, I could say ready to merge or whatever the case may be. And now I'm ready to push. And this shows all of the things that have been changed in there on that particular pull, that particular branch. So now I'll go ahead and push it up into the master. So now my master branch matches the stuff I just pulled up. Go back. It says added logic to switch string method along with a summary comment. Create that, and I'll click that, and there is my code with my condition, right? And now that I have moved that branch over, I can delete this branch now. So let me go over to Visual Studio. Go to that branch, manage branches, right click and no, we don't want to do that. Delete branch from remote. Yep. So now it's gone. Now if I go back over here and I refresh, I should only have the one branch, and it still has the code that I have in there. And that's how you do that, right? Now you could still go back and look at the history and see, you know, what you did here. See where I made code changes and stuff like that, and go from there. You can also look at any pull requests that I had. It looks like I had a closed pull request right there. Once you merge it, that's it. And it shows that I deleted the branch. So all in all, that's how you do branching in GitHub. And it's going to be, it's a great way to stage your changes if you're not ready to push other changes out. So once again, and then also I would encourage you, if you're still kind of sketchy about arrays, just do this, you know, just do this. It helps. So once again, as always, have a blessed one. Hope this helps you. Hope you're learning something. Put your comments out there, subscribe. I'm going to start pumping these videos out a lot faster, hopefully. As always, have a blessed one, and